What's the question?
Will I be forgiven if I have to go to war, for example?
Right. So the question is, can a Christian go to war? Yes. Jesus, when he said that he who lives by the sword dies by the sword, is telling you a truth. Men of violence are dealt with by violence. The Houthis are learning that very reality right now. Hamas is learning that lesson right now. ISIS learned that lesson just a few years ago, and God willing, Boko Haram and the Fulani terrorists of Nigeria Central Belt will also learn that lesson. The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing in the New Testament that commits the Christian to pacifism. So the brother misspoke when he said it's against Christ's teaching to go to war. That's not how John of Damascus understood it. That's not how St. Augustine understood it. That's not how St. Jerome understood it. And which one of you, my brothers, would say that you know the Bible better than the saints? The reality is that pacifism is a moral option in the Christian worldview. It is not a moral obligation. However, Christians cannot fight in idolatrous armies for idolatrous states. I was someone that was going to join the army. The reason why I decided not to join the army is because Britain started bombing Serbia. Who remembers when Britain bombed Serbia? Yes, that war is what stopped me joining the British Army. Because as a Christian, I cannot bear arms against another Christian. But Christians can fight against jihadis. We can fight against the mujahideen. We can fight against anti-fascista. We can fight against BLM when they invade our churches. We can fight against those that persecute Christians. Ladies and gentlemen, but I want to be clear. Do not hear my words as encouraging vigilantism. I don't want anyone to walk away with anything like that. The vile jihads that are being waged against Christians around the world by trash that call themselves mujahideen, these dogs must be fought to the death, but they must be done so within a legal framework, through legal armies constituted by legitimate authorities. So Christians are not pacifists. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Great question. What makes a legitimate authority? In terms of the traditional teaching about just war, a legitimate authority is a government, a recognized government, a legal government. But there are examples where governments break down, where the rule of law breaks down. And in those situations, the church becomes a legitimate authority. So, for example, in Syria, when the jihadis invaded Syria, supported by Western internationalists, and tried to destroy the Syrian state, because the US was playing geopolitics and wanted to bomb Iran and needed a base close enough to do so, the Christian primate of Syria encouraged the Christians to join the Syrian army. And many Christians fought and died in the Syrian army against mujahideen dogs and mujahideen trash. But in the Sudan, when the vile Islamist dogs cried out Allahu Akbar and took black slaves and raped black women and killed 2 million Christians, that was done by the government. And it was the church that legitimized the fight of the Sudanese People's Liberation Army against the jihadis. So to answer your question, where legal governments exist and the rule of law exists, it should be a government. But when rule of law breaks down and governments break down, the church becomes a legitimate authority.